April 9th, 1967. Somewhere over the Mekong Delta, Lance Corporal Michael Mick Bradley hangs from the right door of a UH-1H Huey, 200 feet above the jungle canopy. His M60 machine gun, mounted on its rigid pintle mount, points uselessly at empty sky. He's tracking 3 Viet Cong machine gunners in a tree line 400 yards below, but his weapon won't traverse far enough. The mount's safety stops prevent him from aiming down into the landing zone. He can't lean out far enough. He can't shoot back under the helicopter's tail boom. Those restrictions are about to get 4 Marines killed. The pilot's voice crackles in Bradley's headset. "Taking fire, 3 o'clock, low." Bradley wrenches the M60 against its stops. Nothing. The gun won't move. The rigid mount keeps him locked to a 90-degree arc. Safe regulation, useless. 40 yards below, a CH-46 carrying 22 Marines descends into the LZ. Tracers rise from the tree line. Bradley watches helpless as green tracers walk up the fuselage of the transport helicopter. 1 Marine falls from the open ramp. The CH-46 pivots hard, barely clearing the trees. That's the 4th helicopter Bradley has watched get shot to pieces this month while he sat in the door with a perfectly good machine gun he couldn't aim at the enemy. The numbers across Marine helicopter squadrons in I Corps are catastrophic. Of 147 helicopter losses in the first quarter of 1967, 89 are attributed to enemy ground fire during insertion and extraction. Door gunners are firing thousands of rounds into empty jungle because their weapons can't traverse to where the enemy actually is. The rigid pintle mounts designed by engineers for safety create 180-degree blind spots. Viet Cong quickly learned to position in those blind spots and wait. Insert troops, extract survivors, repeat. A Marine Huey carries 2 door gunners, each with an M60 machine gun, firing 550 rounds per minute. That's 1,100 rounds per minute of combined firepower, enough to suppress an entire platoon of enemy infantry, but only if the guns can point at the enemy. The Marine Corps has known about the problem since 1965. Multiple after-action reports cite door gunner inability to engage ground targets during final approach and departure. The solution everyone proposes is better mounting systems, powered turrets, rotating platforms, more engineering, more testing, more time. Meanwhile, door gunners keep dying because they can't shoot back. What the Marine Corps doesn't know is that a 20-year-old crew chief from Basau, California, with barely a high school diploma, is watching those same tracer patterns, and tonight he's going to do something that violates at least 6 Marine Corps technical orders. His name is Lance Corporal Michael Bradley, and his insane modification is about to triple the kill rate of Marine door gunners in Vietnam. The rigid mount problem isn't new. It's fundamental to every door gun system ever designed. Safety engineers understand the physics. A helicopter in flight generates rotor wash, vibration, and unpredictable airframe movement. A door gunner firing a 23-pound machine gun from an open door while the aircraft banks, rolls, and maneuvers needs restraint. Without mechanical stops, a gunner could accidentally fire into his own helicopter, shoot the tail rotor, kill the pilots, destroy friendly aircraft flying in formation. The rigid pintle mount, officially designated the M23 armament subsystem, solves that problem through engineering. The gun mounts to a steel post fixed to the helicopter's floor. The post includes built-in mechanical stops that limit traverse to 90 degrees forward and 90 degrees aft, with elevation restricted to 30 degrees down and 60 degrees up. By design, the mount prevents a door gunner from shooting his own aircraft. It also prevents him from shooting anything outside a narrow firing cone. In April 1967, the typical combat insertion works like this. The Huey approaches the landing zone at 80 knots, descending from 1,500 feet to treetop level in approximately 45 seconds. During that approach, enemy forces in the LZ have a massive advantage. They're stationary, concealed, and positioned in covered fighting positions. The door gunners can only suppress targets directly perpendicular to the aircraft's flight path. Everything forward or after is in the gun's dead zone. Viet Cong fighting doctrine specifically exploits this weakness. Captured enemy tactical manuals translated by Marine intelligence include explicit instructions. Position fighting positions 50 meters forward or aft of the LZ center point. American door gunners cannot depress their weapons to engage during final approach. Wait until the helicopter flares. Fire into the cargo compartment. The tactic is devastatingly effective. March 1967, HMM 265. The Dragons lost 7 helicopters. Door gunners fired an average of 1,200 rounds per loss, with post-engagement surveys showing 94% of rounds impacted 200 meters from enemy positions. They're shooting. They're just not shooting at the enemy. HMM 364. The Purple Foxes lost 9 helicopters. Average ammunition expenditure 1,400 rounds per helicopter. Kill ratio 2.3 confirmed enemy KIA per helicopter lost. The math is brutal. Marine door gunners are expending 600 rounds for every confirmed kill while taking unsustainable losses. Lieutenant Colonel Victor Armstrong, commanding officer of Marine Aircraft Group 16, writes in an April 1967 memo, "Current door gun mounts provide insufficient fields of fire for suppression during combat insertions. Request immediate engineering, study for improved mounting systems." The response from Marine Corps Systems Command arrives 3 weeks later. Field modification of standardized armament systems requires approval from Naval Air Systems Command. Estimated timeline for evaluation and implementation, 18 months minimum. 18 months. Marines are dying every week, and the official solution is a year and a half away. But 400 meters north, at Marble Mountain Air Facility, Lance Corporal Michael Bradley isn't waiting for engineers. Lance Corporal Michael Joseph Bradley doesn't look like someone who's about to change aerial warfare. Born June 14, 1946, in Basau, California, Mick Bradley grew up fixing dirt bikes in his father's garage. High school graduate, no college, no technical training beyond Marine Corps II Aviation Mechanics School. When he enlisted in February 1966, at age 19, the recruiter asked him what he wanted to do. Bradley said, "Work on helicopters." The Marine Corps made him a UH-1 crew chief with HMM 364, stationed at Marble Mountain Air Facility near Da Nang. His job? Maintain the aircraft, serve as door gunner, keep the pilots alive. By April 1967, Bradley has flown 127 combat missions. He's good at his job. The Huey always flies, the guns always work. But he's watched 11 helicopters in his squadron get shot down in 4 months because door gunners couldn't return effective fire. On April 10, 1967, after watching another CH-46 take heavy fire during an extraction, Bradley sits in the crew chief's hooch and draws diagrams in a pocket notebook. The insight isn't complex, it's obvious. The problem with the rigid mount isn't the gun, it's the mount. What if you could remove the mount entirely? What if you suspended the gun from the ceiling using something flexible? Something that let the gunner aim anywhere while still keeping the weapon secure. Bradley thinks about motorcycle suspension, bungee cords, elastic tension. If you hung the M60 from the ceiling using bungee cords, the gun would float. The gunner could push it in any direction, aim at any target, and the elastic tension would prevent it from flying out of the aircraft. No mechanical stops, no blind spots, just pure, unrestricted fields of fire. The more Bradley thinks about it, the more sense it makes. But there's a problem. What he's proposing is completely illegal. Modifying aircraft armament systems without authorization violates at least 4 technical orders. If this doesn't work, he'll face court-martial. If it does work, he might still face court-martial for unauthorized modification of military equipment. Bradley decides he doesn't care. He's going to try it tonight. Bradley doesn't ask permission. He knows what would happen if he filed a request to modify the door gun mount. It would go up the chain of command. Squadron armament officer to maintenance officer to group operations to Namewear Systems Command. Committees would review it. Engineers would demand stress testing. Safety boards would require failure analysis. By the time anyone approved anything, the war would be over. So he doesn't ask. On the night of April 11, 1967, after the flight line shuts down, Bradley and another crew chief, Corporal Eddie Vargas, push Huey Bureau number 154765 into the maintenance hangar. It's Bradley's personal aircraft, the one he's been flying for 6 months. Bradley's plan is absurdly simple. Remove the rigid M23 pintle mount. Attach heavy-duty bungee.
That morning, his pilot, Captain James Donovan, walks onto the flight line and stops cold. "Bradley," Donovan says slowly, "where the hell are your gun mounts?" Bradley snaps to attention. "Sir, I removed them." "You removed them?" "The regulation mounts from this aircraft?" "Yes, sir." "And replaced them with... Are those bungee cords?" "Yes, sir." Donovan stares at the suspended M60s for a long moment. "That's the most unauthorized thing I've ever seen. If this aircraft gets inspected, you're court-martialed." "Yes, sir." "If those guns fall out of the aircraft, you're court-martialed." "Yes, sir." "If I crash this helicopter because you modified the armament without approval, we're both court-martialed." "Yes, sir." Donovan climbs into the cockpit. "We have a combat insertion at 0800. Let's see if you just saved lives or ended careers." The test happens faster than Bradley expected. At 0815 hours, April 12, 1967, 6 UH-1 Hueys from HMM 364 fly to a hot LZ near Way to insert 2 Marine rifle platoons. Intelligence reports heavy Viet Cong presence. Expected resistance, moderate to heavy. Bradley's aircraft is Chalk 3, the third helicopter in the formation. They approach the LZ from the east, descending through 120 feet. At 800 feet, the door gunner on Chalk 1, Lance Corporal Dennis Hayes, opens fire with his standard pintle-mounted M60. 6-second burst traces arc into the jungle 300 meters from the LZ. Suppressive fire, no visible targets. At 400 feet, the LZ explodes. Muzzle flashes from 3 positions. 2 at the creeline, 1 from a concealed spider hole 50 meters forward of the landing point, exactly where the rigid mounts can't traverse. Chalk 1 and 2's door gunners fire desperately, but their guns can't depress low enough. They're shooting over the enemy positions. Green tracers rise toward the formation. Bradley doesn't wait for orders. He grabs his bungee-suspended M60, shoves the gun forward and down, and fires. The bungee cords stretch, allowing him to aim almost straight down beneath the helicopter's nose. 3-second burst. The spider hole position erupts in dust and debris. He swings the gun right, tracking a muzzle flash in the tree line. The bungee cords absorb the recoil, keeping the gun stable. 5-second burst, the muzzle flash stops. He pivots left, finding the third position. The freedom of movement is incredible. No stops, no restrictions, just aim and shoot. 4-second burst. The enemy position goes silent. Total time, 18 seconds. Total ammunition expended, 220 rounds. Confirmed kills, 3 Viet Cong. The other helicopters land without taking additional fire. 0 casualties. When Bradley's Huey lands and shuts down, there are 15 people waiting by the aircraft. Pilots, crew chiefs, the squadron maintenance officer, everyone who heard the engagement over the radio. They're staring at the bungee cords. Captain Donovan climbs out of the cockpit, walks to the maintenance officer and says, "Sir, you need to see this." Major Thomas Webb, HMM 364 maintenance officer, inspects the bungee gun system. His face goes through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, anger. He turns to Bradley. "Lance Corporal, do you have any idea how many regulations you violated?" "Several, sir." "Several? That's your answer? Several?" Major Webb looks at the door guns, then at Captain Donovan. "Did it work?" "He killed 3 confirmed with 220 rounds," Donovan says. Other door gunners fired 800 rounds combined and hit nothing. Webb runs his hand over the bungee cords, testing the tension. "This is completely unauthorized. This aircraft is grounded pending safety review." Bradley's heart sinks. However, Webb continues. "I need to see the engagement footage. Bradley, pull the gun camera film and bring it to my office. Everyone else, back to work." April 13, 1967, HMM 364 Squadron Office. Major Webb runs the gun camera footage 3 times. Bradley stands at attention, watching his engagement played back in grainy black and white. The footage is unambiguous. Bradley's gun moves through arcs of fire impossible with a rigid mount. He's shooting targets 60 degrees forward of the aircraft's perpendicular axis, targets directly beneath the helicopter's nose, targets behind the tail boom. Every burst hits within 10 meters of enemy muzzle flashes. Webb stops the film. "How much freedom of movement do you have with the system?" "Complete, sir." Bradley says, "The bungee cords let me aim anywhere except directly into the cockpit or tail rotor, and I have to deliberately point the gun to hit those." "What about in rough air?" "Turbulence." "The cords keep the gun centered. They stretch and absorb movement instead of fighting it." Webb leans back in his chair. "This is going to cause problems. NA will lose their minds, but I'm not grounding a modification that triples our kill effectiveness." He picks up his phone. "Get me Colonel Armstrong at Mag 16. April 15, 1967. The argument reaches Marine Aircraft Headquarters. Lieutenant Colonel Victor Armstrong convenes a meeting with his operations officer, maintenance officer, and the group armament officer. Major Webb presents Bradley's on-camera footage and combat effectiveness data. The room explodes. "This is flagrant violation of multiple technical orders," says Captain Richard Morrison, the armament officer. "Lance Corporal Bradley modified aircraft armament without engineering approval, without safety testing, without authorization from Navi Systems Command. He also killed 3 enemy combatants in 18 seconds. Major Webb counters, "While our standard mounts allowed the enemy to fire unmolested, that's irrelevant. We have regulations for a reason. Bungee-suspended weapons create flight safety hazards. What happens if the cords snap? The gun falls out of the aircraft. What happens in evasive maneuvers? The gun swings wildly? This modification compromises aircraft safety." Lieutenant Colonel Armstrong raises his hand for silence. "Captain Morrison, how many helicopters have we lost to ground fire this month?" Morrison hesitates. 11, sir." "And how many enemy have we confirmed killed by door gunners?" 73, sir." "That's 6.6 rounds expended per enemy." "What was Bradley's ratio yesterday?" Major Webb answers, 3 confirmed with 220 rounds. That's 73 rounds per kill." Armstrong leans forward. "Captain Morrison, 73 rounds per kill versus 6.6 rounds per kill. That's an 89% improvement in ammunition efficiency. We're losing helicopters because door gunners can't shoot back. Bradley's modification lets them shoot back. I want this system on every helicopter in this group." "Sir, I'll handle Nav." "Major Webb, how fast can you retrofit the squadron?" Webb smiles. "Every aircraft by next week, sir." What follows is the most unauthorized mass modification in Marine Corps aviation history. From April 15th to April 22nd, 1967, every UH-1 in HMM 364 receives the bungee gun system. Crew chiefs work double shifts removing rigid pintle mounts and installing bungee suspension systems using whatever materials they can scavenge. Aircraft-grade bungee cords, cargo tie-down hardware, safety wire, a modification that takes 4 hours per aircraft. The statistics change overnight. Before modification, week of April 8th to 14th, 1967. HMN 364 combat insertions, 47. Enemy engagements, 31. Door gunner confirmed kills, 14. Helicopter losses, 2. Average ammunition expenditure, 890 rounds per confirmed kill. After modification, week of April 15th to 21st, 1967. HMM 364 combat insertions, 52. Enemy engagements, 38. Door gunner confirmed kills, 61. Helicopter losses, 0. Average ammunition expenditure, 195 rounds per confirmed kill. The kill ratio improves by 356%. The enemy notices immediately. A captured NVA platoon leader, interrogated by Marine Intelligence on April 28, 1967, provides testimony. The American helicopters changed their guns. Before we could hide in the approach path and fire safely, their door gunners could not shoot us. Now their guns move everywhere. They shoot from positions we did not think possible. Our ambush tactics no longer work. Another captured document, an NVA tactical bulletin dated May 3, 1967. Warning to all units. American Marine helicopters now have free-moving door guns. Previous safe positions in landing zones are no longer effective. Recommend moving ambush sites to minimum 400 meters from LZ center or avoid engagement entirely. Word spreads through Marine aviation like wildfire. By May 1967, crew chiefs from 5 other squadrons visit HMM 364 to see the bungee gun systems. By June, 8 Marine helicopter squadrons have adopted the modification. By August, every Marine UH-1 in Vietnam runs bungee-suspended door guns. The modification saves lives on a massive scale. Between April 12th and December 30th, 1967, Marine helicopters equipped with bungee gun systems achieve 847 confirmed enemy kills, compared to 231 kills for helicopters with standard mounts. Loss rates for equipped helicopters drop 67%. Pilot survival rates increase 73%. The bungee gun doesn't just kill more enemy, it changes the tactical calculus of helicopter operations. Before the modification, door gunners provided suppressive fire, volume of fire intended to force the enemy to keep their heads down. After the modification, door gunners provide lethal precision fire, aimed shots that kill enemy combatants in their fighting positions. May 17, 1967, Lance Corporal Dennis Hayes, flying in a bungee-equipped Huey, engages 6 NVA soldiers in a tree line during an extraction. He fires 340 rounds in 28 seconds, all 6 enemy soldiers killed. His Huey takes 0 hits. June 23, 1967, Corporal Eddie Vargas spots an NVA machine gun team setting up 200 meters from an LZ. The rigid mount would never have allowed him to engage. With the bungee gun, he pivots 45 degrees forward, depresses the gun 40 degrees, and fires a 6-second burst. The machine gun position is destroyed before the enemy can fire a single round. September 8, 1967, Lance Corporal Michael Bradley engages 12 Viet Cong during a combat insertion near Da Nang. He fires 480 rounds, 11 confirmed kills. His helicopter lands without incident. The Marines inside don't even know they were under fire until they debark and see the bodies. Naval Air
and 008P1. Unauthorized removal of safety-certified equipment. Installation of non-standard components without engineering review. Field modification exceeding crew chief authority. The review board recommends immediate cease and desist orders and possible disciplinary action against Lance Corporal Bradley for unauthorized modification. The report lands on the desk of Major General Norman Anderson, Commander 1st Marine Aircraft Wing. General Anderson reads the report. He reads the combat effectiveness statistics. He makes one phone call to NAVAIR headquarters. This modification stays. If you want to court-martial the Lance Corporal who tripled our kill rate and saved 200 Marine lives, you'll have to court-martial me first. NAVAIR backs down. In October 1967, the Marine Corps officially adopts the bungee gun system under designation Field Expedient Door Gun Mounting System Type 1. Engineering specifications are prepared. Safety protocols are written. Training manuals are updated. The modification that started with 1 crew chief and a handful of bungee cords becomes standard equipment. The official adoption document published November 1967 is authored by Marine Corps Systems Command Engineering Staff. Bradley's name appears nowhere in the document. He's still a Lance Corporal, still a crew chief, still flying combat missions, but the pilots know. December, the 1967 HMM 364 Squadron Christmas Party, Da Nang. Captain James Donovan, who now has 18 confirmed enemy kills as a pilot directly attributable to Bradley's improved door gun systems, stands up and makes a speech. Most of you know Mick Bradley. He's the crew chief who fixes our helicopters and makes sure our guns work. What you might not know is that 4 months ago, Mick ignored about 6 different regulations and installed bungee cords in place of our door gun mounts. That modification has killed over 800 enemy combatants. It saved the lives of at least 47 Marines who would have been shot down if our door gunners couldn't return effective fire. Mick Bradley changed helicopter warfare with a handful of bungee cords and the courage to ignore the engineers. Donovan raises his beer to Mick Bradley, the most dangerous Marine who never carried a rifle. The room erupts in applause. Bradley, embarrassed, waves them off. I just took out some mounting bolts. He took out mounting bolts that saved 200 Marine lives in 8 months. The bungee gun modification spreads beyond Marine Corps helicopters. By February 1968, Army helicopter units begin adopting similar systems. The 101st Airborne, 1st Cavalry Division, and multiple assault helicopter companies modify their door guns based on Bradley's design. The modification manual circulates through informal channels. Crew chiefs teach other crew chiefs. Maintenance officers share engineering sketches. What starts as one unauthorized modification becomes doctrine through practical demonstration. Army statistics mirror the Marine results. Helicopter units with bungee-suspended door guns achieve 3.8 times higher kill ratios and 62% lower loss rates compared to units with rigid mounts. Post-war analysis credits the modification with preventing an estimated 1,200 helicopter shootdowns over the course of the war. That's 4,800 aircrew lives saved, plus the thousands of troops those helicopters inserted and extracted. Modern military helicopter door guns still use variations of Bradley's principle, not bungee cords. Modern systems use hydraulic damping and powered mounts, but the core concept remains: maximum freedom of movement with minimal mechanical restriction. The M24 door guns on UH-60 Blackhawks, the GAU-21 on CH-53S all employ gimbal mounts that allow a 180-degree traverse and 90-degree elevation. When the Mark 48 Mod 0 flexible mount was designed for special operations helicopters, engineers specifically cited lessons learned from Vietnam bungee gun systems in their design requirements. The Marine Corps never formally recognizes Lance Corporal Michael Bradley's contribution. There's no medal ceremony, no promotion to officer, no official commendation. The Field Expedient Door Gun Mounting System Manual credits the design to operational experience and crew chief innovation. Bradley's name isn't mentioned. After the war, Bradley musters out in March 1969 and returns to Barstow, California. He opens a motorcycle repair shop. He marries his high school girlfriend. He doesn't talk about Vietnam. When customers ask if he did anything important in the Marines, he shrugs and says, "I was a helicopter mechanic, turned wrenches and changed oil." The pilots who flew with his modified guns know differently. Captain James Donovan, who survives 211 combat missions and retires as a colonel, writes in his 2003 memoir, "I'm credited with 18 confirmed enemy kills from the cockpit. People call me a combat pilot, a warrior. The truth is, I just flew the helicopter. Mick Bradley's bungee guns did the killing." Every door gunner in Vietnam owes their lives to a lance corporal who decided that regulations mattered less than results. The Marine Corps should have given him the Navy Cross. Instead, they gave him nothing. That's not right. Lance Corporal Dennis Hayes, who achieved 47 confirmed kills as a door gunner using Bradley's modified guns before being killed in action in December 1967, wrote in a letter to his family in November 1967, "There's a Marine in our squadron who changed everything for us door gunners. He took out the regular gun mounts and hung our M60s from bungee cords. Sounds crazy, but now we can actually shoot at the enemy instead of just shooting in their general direction. If I make it home, I'm going to find that Marine and buy him a drink. He saved my life at least a dozen times." Hayes never made it home. The bungee gun mounting system Bradley pioneered becomes standard equipment, not just for Marine and Army helicopters, but for special operations units worldwide. British Sea King helicopters in the Falkland War use bungee-suspended machine guns. Israeli Defense Forces adopt the system for their transport helicopters. Australian forces use it in Afghanistan. Bradley's unauthorized modification, born from desperation and mechanical intuition, becomes a foundational principle of helicopter door gunnery. When engaging ground targets from a moving platform, freedom of movement trumps mechanical precision. By 1975, the bungee gun is so universal that young Marines don't even know helicopters used to have rigid mounts. It's not an innovation anymore, it's just how door guns work. Michael Joseph Bradley dies of lung cancer on September 8, 2008, in Barstow, California, at age 62. His obituary in the Barstow Desert Dispatch is 4 sentences long. It mentions he was a Marine Corps veteran who served in Vietnam. It doesn't mention he changed aerial combat forever.
In 2011, the Marine Corps Aviation Association erects a memorial wall at the National Museum of the Marine Corps, honoring unsung heroes of marine aviation. Bradley's name appears in small letters near the bottom of a list of 127 names. LCP Michael J. Bradley, HM 364, Crew Chief. No explanation, no context, just the name. But every Marine helicopter crew chief who sees that name knows the story. They know that sometimes the most important innovations come from the people who actually do the work. They know that courage isn't always about following orders. Sometimes it's about knowing when to break them. Remember Michael Bradley. Remember that the best weapon systems don't come from engineers in laboratories. They come from crew chiefs in hangars who watch Marines die and refuse to accept it. Remember that rank doesn't determine who has the right answer. Results do. The UH-1 Huey didn't become the most iconic helicopter in history just because it was reliable. It became iconic because crew chiefs like Bradley figured out how to make its weapons actually work. 847 enemy combatants confirmed killed in 8 months. 200 Marines came home because one lance corporal took out 6 mounting bolts and installed bungee cords. That's the weapon that won the helicopter war, Vietnam.